So didn't want Aaron to monitor two chats, but we'll see what happens here.
I saw it active when I looked at the page briefly when you were over there, and it looks like it was active.
Not sure if there's anything I can do about that. Okay, this is weird. This is the first time it's brought me here. Am I recording? Okay, supposedly we're on live. We're live right now. So let me
just take.
So you may need to pause Zoom a bit or something. Okay, this is weird. This is the first time it's brought me here. Am I recording? I can hear myself, but now you have to see if my voice is echoing. So I'm going to talk a little bit while you double check. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing. Do I sound like one person?
Yeah, it sounds good over here.
Okay, I sound, you can hear me in the YouTube, right? Not on Zoom. Just want to make sure that was clear. Where you're hearing my audio from.
Okay, well, let me mute this.
How's it going?
Hey, Nathan, right now we're broadcasting live on YouTube at the moment.
Oh, good.
So
Fantastic.
we were just doing a sound check. I'm having Joe making sure that our audio and video are coming across on the Zoom channel okay, and we're not echoing or anything like that.
Okay, on Zoom, you're clear over here. I can see you. I can see you and Nate, and I can hear you both well.
You said on Zoom or YouTube? You broke up.
On Zoom. On Zoom.
Is my audio okay? I'm just using the camera mic and not my good mic.
I can hear you. You sound a little echoey, but it's fine.
Joe, when you say Zoom, do you mean looking at it through the YouTube on the browser, in the browser?
No, I'm actually on this machine. I'm on the. I clicked into the Zoom link,
okay.
So I'm just on Zoom on one computer.
Okay, well,
this
Zoom
should be more better. This better.
That does sound a lot better.
Yeah,
that sounds a lot better.
So
not a problem.
And Dave, you sound great too.
Great. So the only thing we need to make sure is, and here is, I believe, I'll drop it in Slack. This should be the direct YouTube link for the live.
Okay. And I'm going to pull that one up on another computer so we won't get the loop of that here. And I'm going to mute this.
Just need to make sure the audio is good on that. And last time we've had a little confusion because between Zoom and YouTube.
Cool. Yep.
Not a problem. And Dave, you sound great too.
There's about a 10-second delay, 15-second delay.
To make sure is, and here is, I believe, I'll drop it in Slack. This should be the direct YouTube link for the live.
And I'm going to pull that one up on another computer so we won't get the loop of that here. I'm going to mute this.
Just need to make sure the audio is good on that. And last time we've had a little confusion because between Zoom and YouTube.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah, delay is fine, expected, but as long as I'm
delay, 15-second
echoing.
delay.
To make sure is, and here is, I believe, I'll drop it in Slack. I'm actually going to close YouTube now because I can't stand to hear myself on delay. YouTube link for the live. Hey Nathan, can you do me a favor and take that Zoom and throw it to Aaron in our programming Slack channel?
Take the Zoom. Oh yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
And then I'll start inviting our guests in for a sound check as well.
Okay. Yeah. So looked good. Sounds good over on YouTube. Great.
And I'm just assuming later we'll just edit out this whole first initial testing part. communicating with our guests. They should be filing in shortly.
Should we keep our pictures on, or should we just monitor? Or
You can do whatever you wish.
okay, I didn't want to
I'll-
distract them if they jump on or not.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get video from all of them. So
Okay.
we'll see. I mean, that's kind of the whole deal with them is, as long as both of you saw I really haven't had a lot of time to put like a documentation together or anything. I didn't want to overwork, but I didn't want to underwork. As long as you saw the video, you've seen the script, and you saw a couple of emails, and you have some idea of if you can share something, and if Aaron or something in the chat, oh, that's what I wanted to see. In the YouTube, you did see a chat, right? Which I can't figure out how to turn off.
It's still there.
Okay. Is there a way I can make you a moderator, make you both a moderator there? And if anybody asks, I hate doing this, but I can't think of any other way to do it because I wanted everything in Slack. I wanted the text communication in Slack. But we either redirect them to Slack and say, hey, that's great, go check it out in Slack, but you have to log in and use Slack, or we can just monitor that chat as well between the three of us, and honestly between the two of you, because I didn't want Aaron going back and forth, and I did my best and I just couldn't find a way. Now in live, Joe, maybe you can tell me if this will work. I think I can turn off comments, but I don't think comments is the same thing as chat.
It looks like at the bottom of the chat box it says hide chat, but I don't know if that's just for us as participants, or you have more control on your
I'm
end.
telling you, YouTube really, really likes to not make this easy. Like I can edit.
If you think we should just paste a message steering them to the Slack channel?
Yes, but I was trying to make you a moderator first. Here's more options. We'll see if this works. Allow all comments. So I'm going to disable comments and hit save.
Okay, let me refresh.
Now this will either disable the chat or disable the comments below the video, which I think it's going to do the latter.
Okay, I'm refreshing.
I don't have a thing that says disable chat. I have
Oh, it is. It disabled the comments underneath the video, not the chat.
Okay. So if my 10-year-old can do this, I can do it. I swear.
That's a big assumption.
I can pay a mortgage. I can do this. If I know enough that I should be paying a mortgage. Nathan, say hi in the YouTube chat for me.
So
I had turned that off because the echo was killing me.
It looks like now. It looks like now next to my name I have a wrench. So that must mean does that mean I have more access, or?
No, it just means you're now an auto mechanic. Yes, you're a moderator. You should be a moderator now. Okay. Not that hopefully you would need it, but I figure add you just in case. You can probably go in there, Joe, already type something that says we're encouraging people to use WordPress Slack and to ask questions, and drop the link in there.
Okay.
Drop a link, I should say, for I guess chat.wordpress.org, I guess is what we direct people to. Nathan, you don't have to keep it open, but I've made you a moderator just in case.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to go ahead
I've got
and
a wrench now.
Everybody keeps saying things about the wrench.
It's
I have a dunce cap next to my name. I don't know what that means. I think that's a little
enough to pay a mortgage.
I don't know. I like to think of it as just an upside down ice cream cone. So, okay, we got 2 guests waiting. Let's welcome them. Make sure their audio's all good. Also, we should probably have the script open in one of our browser tabs, just so if we want to follow along, know where to add our comments, bring up any of the questions from the emails.
Got to find the script again.
Yeah, I can drop it in Slack again next time.
I'll find it. Don't worry about it. It's here.
Hopefully I
Scrolling,
didn't-
scrolling, scrolling.
Yeah, I've got too many Slack channels open here.
Got it. It's the one. It's the one Angela posted, right? Yeah.
Yes, and you scroll down to part 2.
Got it.
All right, so I thought I added these people. Connecting audio, connecting audio. Laura,
Hello, how are you?
hi, welcome to
Laura.
hell.
Hello.
Long time no see.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to get let's see if I can pronounce her name right the first time. Winstina in. She's connecting to audio, 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 spinning, spinning, spinning. I hope she's not having problems. I've never seen anyone that long connect audio that long. Come on.
Yeah.
There,
It's
wait,
easy.
wait,
Oh, there we
wait.
go.
We got a heartbeat.
Ha!
There's Winstina.
She's putting something in her ears. I don't know what it is. Can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear
Hey,
me?
there you are.
Hey.
Okay.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. How is everyone?
Good. How are you doing?
Great.
I know, hey Laura, I'm good. Can you hear me well? I don't have a microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right,
In
great.
fact, why don't you just take over? Nobody needs to hear me. Have a good night, everyone.
Oh no.
I am going to party within 6 feet of my front door. There's people walking in front of my house all the time, and I don't know why.
Are you
I
that
got- oh.
close?
No, just people in my neighborhood just love just taking advantage of public sidewalks and public streets. Everybody in my neighborhood has kids that apparently they don't mind if those kids play together, and I'm like,
Oh.
no, keep them apart. Maybe, and I'm pretending in my mind, maybe they have like an agreement, like we're going to quarantine, and it's just us that we can only interact with. I like to pretend that's what's going on.
I just hope that that's a ceramic dog above Laura's shoulder and not an actual dog on the top shelf.
No, it is very much, yes. That is a ceramic dog that was
Or was at least once not a live real dog.
yes, no, we're not into taxidermy here either.
That's awful.
No. That
Oh,
used to
that'd be
actually used to belong to my grandmother. She had that
Oh, cool.
that statute for years. She loved it. So that was my grandmother's. So it is now mine.
Nice.
No, relax, but I'll be right back.
It's funny. Nobody has ever
Alrighty.
like that is always in my backdrop. You were the first person to mention that dog back there, Nathan. I wonder how many other people have been vaguely disturbed.
That was Nathan who noticed the dog. I'm trying to look for the wine glass that no longer is.
Yes. Yes.
That's why there are pillows.
I'm going to step away for just a second, too. I'll be right back.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I figured like one cadre is not too bad, and then my body blocks the rest of it, so it works out.
That's one advantage of my white stance. Hold on here. Sabrina's having some issues. Please wait. The meeting host will let you in soon. Oh. I didn't think the waiting room. This thing doesn't alert me or blink orange when new people
Oh.
enter.
Sorry,
I'm
I'm
not-
just like sitting here going, oh, looking at something going, I'm just looking at something going, I had no idea that this was here in any capacity. I'm just like surprised on something.
Hey everyone.
Hey,
Hello.
Sabrina. Good daylight.
Thank you.
So I have no idea where the sun is over here right now. All right, so we are expecting up to 2 more people. So far, I haven't heard anything in the chat, and I posted. Laura's my witness. I posted things earlier today. Pinged people yesterday. They're pretty getting sick and tired of hearing from me, which is good. In about an hour, your dreams will be fulfilled. So we'll be starting in another 9 minutes, and I've given you I've given most of you already, especially those who are kind enough to join us today. First of all, we want to give special thanks to Nathan, Joe, and Aaron for their help in the next hour and so. Just to let you know what's going on, Aaron is monitoring the Slack chat. Because I don't have the bandwidth to do that, he is already posted. I'm not. Aaron, can you hear me?
His mic is muted. I can see that.
Okay, I may have forgotten to give him the YouTube link, so let me see if I can do that.
He said, am I supposed to be on the Zoom call or monitoring the YouTube stream? He's in the programming channel.
Oh, I know what channel I'm. Up to you. YouTube is the same, except it's delayed. Can you?
Really, it's like
post
live
that
captioning as you listen to David talk to himself, and then it appears in Slack. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I don't blame him. It's not easy. I had my first episode of interfacing, another third-party product with YouTube so we could broadcast live, and
Yeah.
that delay is real, especially when you have the live chat in one ear and you have the broadcast in another. It's took us a while to sort that one.
Yeah. No
Also,
thanks.
a reminder that we're already recording right now and live. We'll be starting in a few minutes, and just put that out there.
Hey, David's worried about something.
I have to give very many disclaimers. This is this was my idea. That's what they'll say in the end.
Yes.
That'll be on my tombstone. This was his idea.
I feel like if you're at some point in your life you hadn't said it seemed like such a good idea at the time, you're living in experience in delusion. Everyone has gone down that path.
I wasn't allowed to use the expression it was a good idea at the time. My wife has not allowed me to use that expression in the house ever since we've had our 3 children. So she has banned that expression
Seemed
because
like such a good idea.
I've used it and I've ran it into the ground very quickly.
We just reluctantly agreed to allow my youngest daughter to have a cat, and so I'm frequently using that phrase as well. We are dog people, and so now we're now multicultural, I guess. Seemed like a good idea at the time.
To have a cat.
All right. So I wanted to introduce everybody. I'm going to double check one more time, make sure we don't have anybody in the waiting room. We got Joe in there.
Have you gotten the cat yet, Nathan?
Oh yes, the cat is here.
Okay.
A rescue, as I suppose all cats are.
Well, not Schrodinger's cat.
It's actually a sweet cat.
All right, Joe, you're here?
Yes, I'm back.
All right. That's okay, Joe. Accidents happen. So this is how things are going to go. First of all, I want to thank Joe, Aaron, and Nathan. So everybody say hi. They are our WordCamp US programming team.
Thank you.
Aaron is going to be monitoring chat. We couldn't disable the chat on YouTube, so if Aaron can monitor that too, great. If not, Nathan, maybe you can keep an eye out on the chat as well.
That's covered.
We got a few questions in through email, and I forwarded those to Nathan and Joe. The hour is going to go by probably very quickly. So we'll see how much information we can add in. I know we did have one guest that was very, nope, not the bewitched guest, the other one. We had one guest that was particularly really wanting to be a part of this so he could do the pitch. If he doesn't come in, then we might have a little bit less than that. But everybody here has experiences submitting talk proposals. And we've gone over this before today in the video. You've seen our outline for today of what we'll cover in the next hour. So I'm going to go through that, but our theory, which was very similar to what happened in our last open office hours, is we will be covering procedures and then best practices and then WordCamp US specific items, because that's what some people are mainly focused on is, hey, answer me a few questions about WordCamp US and less about the pitch. So we'll start in a minute. I'm going to bring up my outline here. I will introduce, I'll moderate as well. So I would ask that if I don't ask someone specifically for a comment, if you want to go ahead and just physically put your hand in front of the video, kind of like me. In fact, if I can get it over my face, even better. That's just me. You can do it any way you want. That's great. That allows me to, I'll just call on someone and we'll just move on from there. And I think we have a nice sized group. I don't think we'll have any moderation problems internally whatsoever. And again, this is being broadcast on YouTube right now, and the questions are being taken in through Slack. Joe, Nathan, and Aaron will be, Aaron's monitoring the Slack and will respond in Slack. I've tasked Joe primarily to be my co-host here, but also make sure that if there's any questions that we get from Slack, if they're communicated in our programming channel, Joe or Nathan can poke me in our programming Slack channel. So is there any questions before we start? No, that's not a legit question. Somebody asked me, did you lose a bet? No, this was my idea. I volunteered for it. We wanted to do the video aspect because WordCamp US is going virtual this year. So we thought it would be best to kind of get used to it a little bit in terms of people that might be applying to speak or just watching video, making, that sort of thing. I'm going to do some final housekeeping here and we should be ready to go. All right, closing down my iMessage here. Daddy, the house is on fire. Please help us. Nope, quit. That'll be there. I'll get back to you in an hour. I think we're good there. Pull up. Bring one last question. Okay, gonna do one final check to see if anybody in the waiting room. All right. All right, is everybody ready to go? All right. All right. Pause for dramatic effect. And for editing. Okay. Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever is appropriate. Welcome to the WordCamp US Open Office Hours Part 2, happening live right now. It's currently 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and live wherever it is you are viewing right now. We have put together for the next hour some information specifically on how to pitch your WordPress or WordCamp talk, not just for WordCamp US, but for any WordCamp really, although we'll be covering some WordCamp US specifics during our next hour. Before we get into things too deeply, I just wanted to thank everyone for attending today, especially most of us are during work hours during a weekday. I also want to thank Nathan, Joe, and Aaron, who are also on the stream with us today. You can wave hi if you have video. This is being recorded. It'd be, yeah, look good. Just wave and participate. And they are on the WordCamp US organizers team, all on the programming team along with me. So if you have any questions after you view this video or participate, feel free to reach out to any of them. You can also reach out to the WordCamp US Slack channel inside the official WordPress Slack multiverse, I guess. I don't know what you would call that. We will also be monitoring that WordCamp US Slack channel and the YouTube link that's provided as well, that we're broadcasting on YouTube right now, if anybody wants to answer any questions in the audience while they're watching this video. So without further ado, let's have our three guests introduce themselves briefly. Our first is Winstina. Did I get that good?
You did get that right.
Yay, I win a bet with the wife. All right, go ahead. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Winstina Hughes, and I am a WordPress New York City meetup organizer. I have also organized WordCamp New York City, and I've spoken at WordCamp US about the field that I work in, which is in city and regional planning. And I look forward to contributing today.
All right, next up on our list is Laura. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Laura Byrne Cristiano. I'm originally from the New York City area, but now I'm down in Philadelphia, where I take part in the Philadelphia meetups, the suburb meetups, and we've got a really active community. I'm a former WordCamp US co-organizer, and I'm happy to be organizing WordCamp Philly this year, which will also be online.
Oh, good. Yes. I'll be wandering around virtually in Philly later this year. Last but not least, Sabrina, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina. I'm from Kyiv, Ukraine. Now I'm here in Kyiv. I'm co-organizer of WordCamp Kyiv last year, a lead organizer for WordCamp Kyiv last year and this year as well. I'm co-organizing WordPress meetups in Kyiv. I've spoken at quite a few WordCamps during the last 2 years, and I never applied towards Camp US before, but we'll do this year.
Oh, well, fantastic. And it sounds like to me, Understatement of the Year award would probably go to anyone who said that there's anyone here, everybody here has quite a bit of experience with WordCamps in one way, shape, or form. We do want to also remember that there's going to be some people that probably might be applying for the first time. And we also want to keep those lovely people in mind as well. And before I go any further, again, I want to thank all our guests here to be here today. And I didn't want to make a mention that we greatly appreciate the time that you all are putting in. And just to make a disclaimer that your participation here is for the benefit of the WordPress community and does not reflect any favoritism or guarantees or special deals or anything along the lines regarding your talk
Oh, it's
submissions.
not.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not looking at you. That's a disclaimer. I had to read, Sabrina. I'm so sorry. No, I should have timed that better. I should have made Joe read it. That's what I should have made Joe read it. Okay. Wow, this is going great. Wait till we get the code of conduct policy. Wow, that's going to be a hard one. Speaking of which, this falls under the code of conduct policy. Let's just move on quickly from there. All right. So again, we covered on Saturday topics, like how to find a topic. We did that exclusively in WordPress Slack. This next hour was about writing your pitch. So for the next hour, we have all the people that we've introduced we're going to follow along with some tips and suggestions that I have here, and then our guests are going to be able to first of all ask their questions, because we would love to hear questions from people who are legitimately submitting to WordCamp US or a imminent future WordCamp. And also, they also have experience as organizers, as you just heard, whether it's for a meetup or a WordCamp or both. So all of us have experience, including Nathan and Joe and Aaron. All of us have that kind of experience where one time or another, we've had to write or read proposals. So we'll have a lot of information here. We have a lot of knowledge that we want to tap into today. If you are viewing this video or you're viewing this for the first time and you weren't with us on Saturday, this is just a reminder that WordCamp US 2020 will be a virtual event this year. So this is different from any other WordCamp US in the past. So there's going to be some tips shared in the next hour that could be better suited for a virtual talk. The second reminder is that the call for speakers was extended before. It was ending last month. It's now at the end of this month, May 31st. And if you go to 2020.us.wordcamp.org, you will get links to all the information. We even have a speaker FAQ set up currently. And speaking of that FAQ, you do want to take a look at it on the website, because we are constantly updating it with the information as it comes in. We don't have all of the answers right now, but we will have our FAQ updated as quickly as we can, especially when it comes down to some technical details that we're still working out. And and we will also be available, like I said, in WordCamp US Slack, WCUS Slack, if you want to ask some questions down the road in the future. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. So let's talk about writing a pitch and submitting. We want to know, or a lot of people wonder silently to themselves, at the very least, what it takes to write a good pitch. Many especially view larger WordCamps like WordCamp US as especially competitive enough that they give their pitch or submission a second review, or they think about it more in their mind than perhaps other events, or maybe even meetups, because meetups are usually lower stress levels, but once you get up to WordCamps, your stress levels go higher. And that's even for people who have submitted to WordCamps or talks in the past, let alone people who have never submitted before. So my takeaway from that, and everyone can jump in here in a minute, is it's more important than ever to make your content valuable to as many users as you can. So in your website, you're usually like to make your content available to whoever it is you're trying to address, or the widest possible audience that you want to address. So that being said, one of the takeaways that I get, or I provide, is that is your talk topic, how applicable is it to the audience that you know or you think is attending the conference? And sometimes it could be pretty obvious. Other times it may not so be obvious. And whenever we have this discussion, someone kind of naturally comes to the conclusion, well, if my talk is going to be accepted, especially at a larger WordCamp, but any WordCamp, then it needs to apply to everybody, or it needs to be a broad topic, or at least a broad developer topic or something along those lines. Not necessarily. And that's why we're talking about writing pitches here, because, or submitting your application. You need to be able to know what audience you are trying to address and being able to communicate that in your pitch or your submission. And sometimes we as a WordCamp organizer, I initially take a look at a topic and I say, I don't see how in the world this can possibly apply, or at least apply to more than a few people. But then after reading the description, if somebody says this applies to this audience that you may not even heard of, and here's evidence of its popularity and so forth in the community, and then that sometimes changes my mind and my feelings on it. Is there anyone here who has any experience in having some difficulties or suggestions on how you can determine or how to communicate how a talk, what audience your talk can apply to, and help the applicant readers appreciate that? I know I have at least one suggestion, but I was wondering if anybody else had one off the top of their head. Unprepared. Underscoring unprepared.
Could you just repeat the question, David?
Sure. What tips can you give when it comes to identifying your audience and why that audience and why your talk would be good for that audience for a WordCamp submission? Laura.
What I have like a little 3-item system I use, but just to address the point that you made, I always think about it as like pain points. So I think about stating in my pitch, what is the problem or issue that my audience, my user encounters in broad terms. Like, this is the issue and this is what I want to address. And I feel like that immediately focuses the folks who are reading my pitch on what my content area is. And then on top of that, what I'm hoping to solve, not that I'm the best expert ever, solve or address, and who else this could apply to. So that's always the way I start off, is stating the problem or issue in broad terms.
That's a good tip. In fact, I'll steal that.
Yeah, I totally agree with Laura. I think just in your mind, it doesn't need to be necessarily written this way in the pitch, but starting off the first line of, have you ever ... experienced this, had this problem, gone through this, whatever. That's a good way to start a sort of structure. Have you ever done this? Well, here's what I learned, and here's who, and if you're like me, here's who it applies to. Kind of wrapping all that in is a good flowing introduction.
Right. And it's kind of like writing sometimes I used to be a freelancer. It's almost like writing an email to a potential customer saying, this is the value that I bring to you, or this is the knowledge that I bring to you. So one of the examples, and I'll read it off here, here's an example of a good pitch and it's called Responsify All the Things. In our new web multiverse, it's more important than ever to make your valuable content available to all users, regardless of how they access your site. In this talk, we'll cover how responsive web design came about, the latest responsive news and trends, and some basic and not so basic techniques you can use to make your next WordPress theme a responsive one. Intended for developers and designers who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty with a little bit of code. And I've also pasted that text into our Slack channel as well, just for your review. So the thing I liked about that is it very distinctly and shortly told us what it's about, what it's covering, and how it applies to the audience. In this case, it's usually a WordPress audience.
I like how the pitch includes developers and also marketers. Broadly speaking, developers, folks who are marketers, and then also, people who create content are kind of the three, groups of people that a lot of the talks are geared towards. And so if you can highlight the 2 groups or 3 groups that you're seeking to engage in your talk, that's really helpful. I think that probably one one group would work, two at most, only because you have tracks. Usually a WordCamp has, like three different tracks, and it's great for an attendee to know which track to go to. And so, one or two subject areas I think are really great for an attendee as well. So you're pitching to you're pitching to the team that's selecting speakers, but you're also, like, on the day of, your description is pitching to attendees as well.
That's a good point, because and I just want to I'll slip it in here. WordCamp US is accepting 3 applications this year, but it doesn't hurt to nail in every talk submission what audiences would be applicable to this. I know as an organizer, sometimes there is almost an overlap or a gray area for one talk that we say, we come back to the speaker and say, we have enough developer talks, but we think your subject just happens to be touching this area that we think could apply to some other audience or whatever that is. So I think that's completely understandable. But let's talk titles for a minute, because just like every good book, well, every good book has a title. I guess every book has a title, but books are often the first thing you see when you open a document or a book or any document when it comes to WordCamp organization talk submissions is the title. So some of us like to be clever in titles. Maybe most of us get a little cocky. We've spoken a number of years. So nothing wrong with anything catchy, but what the base tips that we wanted to cover, and then I would invite all 3 of you to weigh in on your advice regarding talk titles, good ones or bad ones, or what has been your experience as an organizer. The base tip would be something catchy, but also explanatory. I think I mispronounced.
Explanatory.
There you go.
There you go.
One of those things.
This is why I can't speak anymore at WordCamps. So what does that mean? It means that you don't want your titles too clever. Your titles needs to stand out on its own, basically, without the pitch. So take it from someone who has designed WordCamp signs of programming, like this is the room and these are the titles of the talks, and the person next to them, their pictures. When you walk into a room, right as you walk into the entrance, you pass a sign or something that says these are the talks in here, and you look at something, and you should be able to get some idea just by looking at a title what it's about. And if it's too clever, sometimes this happens. It goes right over your head.
True.
Yeah, I didn't want to mess this up. I got it just right. After 6 months of no haircuts, I didn't want to buzz too close to the ground there. But generally, so what makes title good and not so good? So is there any thoughts on that?
I think what makes a good title is including the topic within it, rather than it just sounding like something that would pull someone in. Like, include, for example, a presentation on how a WordPress tool is used within a particular field. Planning, let's say. You could put, how a planning tool, specifically how an economic development tool facilitated this particular project. So you want to put as much as possible that pertains with as few words as possible in the title. So it's pretty, succinct, but folks, or attendees have a sense of exactly what they're going to.
That's good advice. Laura?
Agreeing with what Winstina is saying, things that you don't want to be too broad about it. Pitching something like viewpoints on accessibility. I mean, that's an ocean. You have to narrow it down. Or
Hope sometimes you got 4 hours.
Or sometimes I've gotten talks that are some modern development concepts. I'm like, wow, we could just, so you do want it in there, but you got to kind of narrow it down. So something like the top 5 challenges in accessibility today, or like if it was, CSS secrets for beginners that will help you get to the next level, something like that, that hits that area that Winstina is talking about, but then you let me know where specifically you're going with it. And what's, I think, also good about that is the more you can do that with the title, it makes you as a speaker appear organized. Because if I just get a pitch that's like topics on development, I feel like you don't really know what you're going to do. And I really want to feel secure that you know where you're going at the time you're pitching me.
That's an excellent point that Laura brought up. When the team is looking, at all the different pitches that they receive, it's really important to know what to expect. And a title and like a nice short description that's really clear will help them so much, because you have to know what to expect on the day of. And if you don't, then you're probably going to look at another speaker's pitch that's clearer.
Sabrina, I see you nodding your head so much, I'm afraid it's going to fall off. What do you want?
Yeah, I just want to add that for smaller WordCamps, for example, for our WordCamp in Kyiv last year, it was, we had 2 pitches that had very broad titles. One of them was WordPress and SEO, and another was WordPress is a platform to build anything. And both of these pitches were from very good speakers. They do very interesting stuff, and they're both very good speakers. And we didn't select them at first because the title and the description were so bad, they were not interesting at all. But as we knew the speakers, and they already have spoken at meetups, and we knew how much value they can bring, we accepted them in the end. But for larger WordCamps, it's not possible. So I think people who would apply should consider that no one will go through the whole list if they are already filtered.
Okay,
Yeah.
so go ahead.
I was going to say that if you're a large WordCamp, if you're a medium or a small WordCamp, you don't always receive the number of pitches that you need to fill your entire track for the day or 2 that you've selected. And so it's quite possible. And I don't know how WordCamp US organizers go about it, but it's quite possible that you would have a speaker wrangler or someone reach out to find out if you could be more specific. And if you're able to be more specific, then they're able to work with you to move that forward, because it's true. You really could have a really talented speaker that's spoken at a meetup before, and you happen to not have enough people who've applied to speak at your WordCamp, and as long as you give something that's great, that's something for them to work with, and they could potentially incorporate you, having spoken to you, within the list of speakers that they select.
So
I know.
go ahead,
just
Nate.
Joe, I was just going to add,
there's
I
Joe.
think the very first WordCamp that I was accepted as a speaker, the cool thing was that the organizing team reached out afterwards and said that the title was what caught their eye and enticed them to want to read that first sentence. So again, it's really important how you think about the title as a way to hook people and bring them into your speech.
Yeah, and just if I could add one thing on that as well, I think there's a good balance to be had between what would be a clever title that is, undiscernible, so you read some strange title and you have no idea what the talk is actually about. So there's a happy medium, I think, and a lot of the talks that I've submitted do this, where there's a creative title, but then a subtitle that's on the nose. There's a talk I give about problem clients that's building fences around friendly monsters, but I ended up changing the title to say, dealing with problem clients dash building fences around friendly monsters. So it kind of hits both of those things. It's creative, but at the same time, you know exactly what that talk's going to be about. Now, as a WordCamp organizer myself, you don't want to have your how-to part of the title 30 words long, right? Because it's got to fit on signage and everything else. And so you almost have to be poetic and finding one word that is embedded with the meaning of 10 words and, you know, pull all that together into a good solid title. Title selection is really important.
That's an excellent point, Nathan. It's true. You do have to fit the title on your posters and you know, the schedules that you share. That's an excellent point.
So there is no magic formula for titles when it comes to WordCamp US. So that's where, and the other aspect too is that you may want to think about, I don't think the fundamentals of anything we've talked here change anything because it's a virtual conference. That being said, you may have someone when the WordCamp US comes around, you may want to give thought that someone might be quickly browsing a whole page of titles and links. And so it's just as important to have a good title when somebody is browsing there versus someone who's physically at WordCamp. You know, I'm not too concerned about talk titles when it comes to the WordCamp end, because, you know, you want to have a title that accurately, you know, can be a little catchy, but again, accurately reflects the whole pitch in general and the subject material, because you have to get it past the approval. Then you can, I've seen speakers can modify their titles a little bit as long as the organizers say it's okay after they've been approved. And because many times they're writing the talk, let's be honest, some people haven't written the talk yet, they're pitching it. And once they've been approved, they modify the title from there. So don't worry too much about it, but don't try to be too clever. And you want to tailor the tone a bit so that it definitely reflects the area, not be too broad or vague or too catchy and all of that thing. So let's move on beyond the title aspect now and move to just briefly commenting about the language of the pitch. So one of the things too that sometimes I've seen in past applications is the general vocabulary of the submission. And so we just want to ask, just if you're submitting something to a WordCamp especially, consider your vocabulary. Do you think it's suitable for WordCamp, or do you think it's suitable for a WordCamp US? And we've touched a little bit on this last Saturday, where if you're applying a beginner's talk to a WordCamp, great. But WordCamp US is, I know early on we were talking about beginner talks when it was an in-person event, that if that was ever going to come to be, it has not come to be now because it is a virtual event. And there's plenty of beginner material virtually that is out there. So submitting a talk for, let's say, how to use WordPress, for example, wouldn't go over well for a WordCamp US specifically. Another thing would be your vocabulary, in that writing for WordCamp is different than writing a sales pitch. You know, when we say pitch, the word sales is in front of it. I've seen applications where the language had no points of interest, or it did not contain anything that would really hook someone in the WordPress community into it, regardless of what subject matter they were talking about. So it's just something to also keep in mind too. Just when you're finished with a pitch, just take a step back and say, do you think this is suitable for somebody for the WordCamp that I'm going for? Anything that would appeal to the WordCamp US attendees, and that includes maybe how it applies to them, or how hot the topic is, or, you know, that something along those lines. So moving along here, I do want to bring in one more guest. Special. This is a special surprise guest. No, it's not Matt. Good grief. Everybody, that's the first question. That's the first question I get. And we did have one of our speakers jump, or our panelists kind of jump in a little late here. Let's see if we can get her in. Oh, there she is. Is your audio working?
Yep.
Oh, great. Introduce yourself real quick, and we're about to go into six important points when considering writing your outline and your pitch. But I'll let you introduce yourself real quick, and then you can get in on the action here.
Jocelyn Mozak. I spoke at my very first WordCamp in 2015, got hooked, and have been speaking ever since.
Yeah, we're apparently paying her by the word. So she is really concise. Well, we thank you for joining us. We're about to end. We've covered titles, we've covered general vocabulary and what an abstract of your pitch would be. Now we're going to go by 6 important points that I have down here for writing an outline in your pitch. And the first one is direct the proposal to the attendees, not the curators. So speaking from as a WordCamp organizer in Miami and in other conferences, including US, your talk proposal is being used as the description of your talk. So ultimately, your target reader is going to be a WordCamp US attendee. So you're focused on some nameless or faceless entity or organization looking over your speaker submissions, and we'll get to exactly how WordCamp US actually does their talk submissions at the end of the hour here. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we do not rewrite your talk proposals.
Yep. Sure.
You need to be able to do you need to be able to follow the suggestions and tips that we've been outlining so far, but your target reader still has to be the WordCamp US attendee. So put it another way, if it's not going to be interesting or understandable to a WordCamp US attendee, it's probably not going to be understandable to an organizer or anybody reviewing your application. So that's when I said going back to the vocabulary, it kind of goes back to that. And sometimes you need to grab a couple of people off the street, or well, off of a WordPress street, that would be preferable, to say, hey, does this make sense to you? And kind of get feedback from that. So directing the proposal again to the attendees and not the curators, and tell the attendees then why your talk will interest them and what they will learn. It's just that simple. And I don't know if anybody has anything to add to that, because it took me 6 hours to write that. I was trying to encompass everything, but does anybody raise your hand if you got anything on that? Laura?
I would agree with that. I had a talk I was pitching, and it was going nowhere fast for about a year. And I was very, very passionate about this particular topic. And I had a conversation with Taco Verderschott from Yoast at WordCamp US. And we were just chatting, and he's like, well, tell me about this. And when I explained it to him, he really helped me rethink how I was pitching this topic, what the title is. Like, just having somebody that I didn't talk to all the time, and the talk was not necessarily in his specific area of expertise, but just talking it out with him really helped me to refocus how I was pitching that topic. And right after I did that, the talk was accepted in multiple places. So I think that's just super sound advice of getting another person's point of view, and also somebody's point of view who might not particularly be in your specific wheelhouse. Because, just pitching to another designer, there's also you want some cross opinion, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes, feedback, right? Because you could be in your own echo chamber, or whatever the kids are calling it these days. Yes, and again, that's also like if you're using terms not familiar enough in the WordPress community, then it's a WordCamp US attendee is not going to be able to understand it very well. So you can't really, and remember, WordCamp organizers are volunteers, just like you and me. So we do not know, let's be honest, we don't know much, or at least compared to what's all is knowable in the WordPress space. You could have an organizer read something about marketing, and they're not a marketer, they're a developer. So you need to be able to, if you're thinking at you need to be able to reach the attendee and reach someone who is reading your talk. I can tell you that, even ignoring the approval process, you don't, keep an open mind as to who comes to your talks. We have many people in WordCamp Miami in the past that will come to these deep developer talks. And then afterwards we go, oh, like, how do you code? And we ask them coding questions, perhaps, badly assuming that they're into the coding, sitting in a coding class. And they're like, no, I'm just a manager. I'm just here so I can try to get some information to my developers. And because your talk title mentioned a feature that I was interested in, but I can't code, so we want to make sure, direct the proposal to the attendees in that way, and don't focus on the curators too much. So anyway, second point, be specific about the focus your talk will have. So generally speaking, a shallow introduction to many things is not as interesting as an in-depth introduction to one thing. So if you discuss maybe a broader topic, do so only just to set some context as to what you'll be focused on. Especially, I think this is really, go back to previous WordCamp US talks that have been approved in the last couple of years. There have been some broad subjects, but more often than not, even if there is a broad subject being discussed, it's with the end goal of addressing some sort of specific experience or specific use case or something along those lines. So in your talk proposal, be specific about the focus. Does anybody agree with that? Show of hands.
Yeah. Can I just comment on that real quick?
Oh, sure, Nathan.
I think that you just touched on what I think is the single biggest problem that most of the talk submissions that we haven't selected at our local WordCamp in Birmingham have had in common. And that's what I would call a kitchen sink talk. You're trying to solve all the problems in 45 minutes, and you can't do that. You can barely solve one well. So rather than, trying to do everything, just pick the one thing. And honestly, having spoken for a long time, I think that probably those kitchen sink talks are really trying. There's one dirty dish in that sink that the speaker really wants to get to, but they're afraid they can't fill an hour talking about that subject. And I promise you can if you work on that. That's another subject altogether. But just focus on the one dirty dish, not the whole sink full.
Have you seen the size of my dishes? Should be what you think. Right?
That's another talk altogether, David.
Laura, is your hand up?
Yes.
Okay.
Similar to what Nathan said, focus in on that. And something you said, David, earlier is, we're all volunteers. All of the people listening to it are volunteers. And you want to be respectful of those volunteers' time. When you pitch something, be specific. Don't just say, here's my link to my YouTube video where I've already given this presentation, or go see my slides. Like, that's not really respectful of a person's time. And that's not really helpful to, as you said, these are going to get used on the website afterwards. Think of an attendee. What, I want to go see your slide. I could just go watch you on the other place. Presumably you're going to modify that talk and change it every time when you give it, and you learn something every time you give a talk. So I would encourage people you can use something to illustrate your point, but you still need to have a written point. And I don't think see my talk with no other explanation, see my slides with no other explanation is particularly helpful to anybody.
Right. Organizers, they don't really have a lot of time in their hands to go hunting and guessing what you mean. So, include your links, but don't
make it just that.
Yes.
Good point too. Don't spend precious time writing about all the different WordCamps you've spoken at, because we do our research too. So when you keep the title, really short and straight to the point, and you have a description that lets us know what to expect, and we really like what you've submitted, we'll also check as well, and look for presentations that you've done before. So don't spend that valuable real estate kind of putting all the different speaking, opportunities that you've had, because we'll find it. And that really touches on what Laura is saying too, because as volunteers, we don't have as much time as we like. And, you know, we would love to just really get everything that we need in one place.
Sabrina, any thoughts on that, or do you agree?
I agree completely. Just maybe a small note for those who don't know, WordCamp organizers usually view the list of topics in a Google spreadsheet. So it's kind of writing the title and description for your website pages for SEO. The title should be short because they won't see the end, and the description also shouldn't be like pages because no one will be able to overview it.
Good.
Yeah.
So specific about the focus your talk will have, we've covered that pretty well. Also, another strategy, one possible strategy is also pose the question your talk will answer. So often talks answer questions, and questions start with how, why, when, and so on. I have 3 kids. I answer stuff all the time. But think if you have a general idea of what you want to talk about and how to communicate that, ask yourself a question: how, why, when. An easy trick is to direct asking these questions to your proposal and leaving the reader wondering what the answer would be. So you can have a talk pitch that may be a little mysterious, not too much, not Scooby-Doo mystery, but I'm talking about more along the lines of posing a question, and then in this talk, this is how we're going to answer this question and why others are asking the same question. So one strategy, again, is posing a question your talk will answer. Another point was, speaking of points, here's an important one: make your point as succinctly as you can, which I think we've been touching on pretty well. So if your first draft requires more than 2 paragraphs to get your point of your topic across, edit to slim things down. Take out any words that can be removed without changing the meaning. We get a lot, I know we get a lot of speaker applications in Miami, and so I think we've already covered that here. Get your point across quickly. So make your point as succinct as you can. So I think we're all in agreement on that. Yes, Joellen, go ahead.
I was just thinking, you know, when I go and write my speaker proposals or pitches, I liken it a lot to almost good website copy, right? It's really very much marketing. It's making sure that those reading it can understand that you understand them. And that's where it's kind of opening up with that question where they go, yeah, that's me. Yes, yes, yes. That's exactly the issue I have. And then you let them know, like, this is where they want to be. Like, you're going to walk away with these transformations, these problems solved, these challenges answered. And so that's usually how I kind of think about writing them. And the other piece that's coming through me that when I think about design is the kitchen sink versus a clean design, right? I always hate it when a client's like, I just want something simple. I'm like, you have no clue what you want, do you? Because they don't realize simplicity is clarity. And I suspect these proposals that are the kitchen sink is actually showing a lack of really getting clear on what are you talking about? What is the point? And how are you going to transform that audience? And the more you prune it down to those core statements and those core words, it takes a lot of work. But that actually is a speaker who probably does have clarity on exactly why they're in that room and what they're going to deliver. And so working on those pieces to get to that, because as I said, I think of it a lot as almost effectively marketing copy. They don't care. It's just like in business. People we help don't care how we're going to do it. They want to know that you get where they are and you know where they want to be, and you can take them there. And that's the journey of your pitch, saying I can take this audience from their struggle to where they actually, the breakthrough they want to have.
Yeah.
And so moving on, I think all those are excellent, great points. But I pay my babysitter by the hour, so we want to make sure we end this on time. I think the next point we can play through real quick: proper grammar, spelling, and punctuation. And you know what? You'd almost think that would be a given, but I've seen other people's. I'm not even going to talk about talk proposals. I've seen as a freelancer other people's proposals to get other people's clients, the ones I'm talking to. If someone says, "Hey, what do you think? I'm about to send this off to somebody." And I'm like, do you have a spell checker? I don't spell at all. Have you seen my tweets? Half of them are spelled wrong. But I mean, if I'm going to try to get someone actually to pay me for something, I will try to spell check it. But how you write, whether you write one big long paragraph or you have bad pronunciation, and there is language barriers, true, and you can do the best that you can. You can get help with that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, how you prepare your proposal is a reflection on you.
Yeah.
And the organizers will pick up on the fact of if it looks like you didn't put a lot of thought into it, then you run the risk of appearing that you'll be just as careless when you're doing the talk yourself. And not related to spelling or grammar or something, but you can tell when someone has pasted a description, a generic talk description, and just hit the send button. Like, not just like, we're not just talking about WordCamps. We're just like this could have been submitted to any camp, any tech conference. And you can tell by reading it. It's just this is like a little like copy and paste type of stuff. So like, okay, that could be a great subject. They could have great experience, but there's still a doubt there, right? Like, are they just going to phone this in on the stage like they phoned in their application? I have to explain to my kids what a phone is, but yeah, but I mean, in 20 years. But does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think it makes sense.
100%.
So here's our last of the 6 topics. Have your proposal reviewed by someone with experience. And just as you might ask a friend to critique, like we said, any sort of copy. And remember, we also went back and we talked about drafts. So the first thing you write up, you don't hit the send button on. That is what we call in the business a first draft. There's a reason first comes first, because there is more than one. So you don't have no one's unless you are planning on applying 5 minutes before the submission ends. If so, shame on you. You want to be able to have enough time, right, to write something out, sit there and stare at it, consume it, and then do a second draft, right? So and then Nathan's like, yeah, Dave, we get it. We get it. But I mean, you have that first. So once you have that first draft, then it's probably good, first draft, second draft, whenever you feel comfortable, to be able to share that with someone with experience and ask someone to be able to review your talk proposal. And they will catch typos. They'll be able to, basically whatever we've talked about here today, that will probably be stumbled upon in some way, shape, or form if you ask someone else to look at it. Now, here's a question for you. What if I'm a lone bird in the WordPress community, or I don't know that many people, or I have a certain level of imposter syndrome, or blah, 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 fill in the blank? What are some real quick suggestions that we can offer in terms of getting a proposal out there without making it look like we're bothering the random WordPress community person? Ha! It wasn't in the script. I threw a curveball.
So, all right. I think this will require a slightly creative answer. And the first would be, don't count yourself out as a subject matter expert in your field. And when you see the value that you can offer to a WordCamp, that can help you see yourself as part of a WordCamp and a community, as opposed to being alone. I think that's the first thing. Just because your background isn't in WordPress for years and you're just a beginner, doesn't mean that the subject that you're familiar with isn't of value as well. And so that's the first step I think you can have in not seeing yourself as alone or as an imposter. Because if you can speak to what you know, then you find yourself amongst a group of people that come with very different backgrounds.
So what is critical to WordCamps? What kind of precedes WordCamps, a smaller version of that, you think, that someone might be able, if they were planning ahead, be able to utilize? So WordCamps are big events, but something else. Laura?
Your local WordPress meetup or any other kind of local, gathering of folks, whether it's a women's group or a coders group or whatever, talking there. But I think even more important than that is, some of us are just natural extroverts in the universe, and other
don't rub
folks,
it in, Laura.
right? And other folks are not. I think on a certain level, it's incumbent on those of us who are very comfortable getting up and talking and who have talked and have seen folks who are quieter with skills and talents to go to them and say, I want to hear you talk. Can I help you? Let's start you out with a 5-minute talk on a plugin or a give you a frame, and here are the top 3 things you need to know about X, and lift that person up, because everybody's got something to say and everybody can say it. But I think sometimes all that person needs is somebody else who they perceive as, oh, they're always giving a talk, to let them know they believe in them and they can do it and they are willing to help them. And I think that you can't just say, oh, everybody apply. I think sometimes you really have to go to people personally and say, I believe in you, let me help you.
Yes.
I think I was just going to jump in and say there's a couple of messages in the chat about that specific topic. They're wondering whether they should even submit and whether what they have to say is important. I know for me, in our community, Alex Vasquez, I was at WordCamp Los Angeles a long time ago, and I was walking through a break room, and he handed me a microphone. And he just said, introduce yourself. And then afterwards, he said, you know, you should really consider speaking at a WordCamp. And little did I know he said that to everybody, but at that time, it was what I needed to hear to submit that first topic. So I would encourage everyone, you know, you may not think you have something to say, but it is important to share it with the community. So consider submitting.
Ms. Bozak, how about you?
I was going to say, my story of my first WordCamp is one where I didn't even apply. I had never spoken in my life. I had never attended a WordCamp in my life. Someone on my team mentioned it. I said, who would do that to themselves? She submitted my name, picked the topic, and a month later I got a congratulations, you've been accepted to speak. And I had no idea if I liked speaking or not. I was scared to death. But what I kept telling myself is 2 things. 1, well, they picked me, so it's on them. And 2, they're not paying me. So you get what you
serves
pay
them
for.
right. Serves them right.
You know, and that, you know, and I mean, I actually got up there and discovered, since I'm still doing this, that I absolutely love the microphone. And I'm like, oh my good God, I had no idea. And so that's, you know, and still to this day, I use that mantra when those little gremlins show up that say, you know, are you good enough? Are you this? Are you that? You know, this is just like anything. It's a 2-way street. So just because you submit the application doesn't mean they're going to accept you. So just pretend they're not going to accept you. And if they do, you'll worry about that problem later. And there's a bunch of people who are happy to help you prepare and to do all the things. But yes, my mantras of, again, they picked me, it's on them, and you get what you pay for. That has gotten me through those stage fright moments. And yeah, just show up and be you. And I think the biggest challenge we all have in life is just believing that we are enough as we are. And so just close your eyes and jump.
That's beautiful.
Okay, so Sabrina, you've disappeared from my Zoom. My Zoom can only go so wide. Did you have anyone in particular when you were submitting that did have someone look over your talks?
You know, like almost everyone here, I was very lucky to get a lot of support. And but I just want to mention about the imposter syndrome. It's very usual and so on. But I think if you have imposter syndrome and you are so stressed to show your talk description to anyone to get another point of view, you just need to be realistic and to prepare yourself that standing on the stage will be much, much more stressful. So if you are going to stand on the stage and to share your knowledge, you got to get prepared to some level of stress. And you can start with showing your talk description to someone. It can be like the first baby step to it.
Excellent, good. So I think we all agree here that it's important not to be alone in this process, whether you're an experienced speaker or you're someone doing it for the first time. The community is out there and they're very willing to help. So so that could be, and you know what, I'm going to say, you don't even necessarily need to ask someone in the WordPress community anyway. Yeah. I have given my talks to my daughter, and you know, she's honor bound to have to sit there and listen to me, but she does it and she gives me useful feedback. So like, it's, if I can speak to a 15-year-old kid, then I might be able to speak to, well, coming out that way, it doesn't sound good when I I'm trying to reach the WordPress community. But I think if I can relate to someone in that age, I can relate to other people as well, at least in what I'm writing. So when it comes to WordCamp US, I think we've got all that covered pretty well. And use Meetup, and don't forget to use your meetups, or just ask anybody outside the WordPress community. So I wanted to spend the last few minutes of our hour. Oh, it's been an hour already. Yes, of our last hour to focus a little bit more on WordCamp US specifics. I know some here have spoken at WordCamp US and others have not. And I wanted to kind of make it a little bit more public than we have in the past few weeks. We've been focusing on deadlines for the camp submissions, but some people do ask about what the process is. And we had some nice, we actually had a talk last year at WordCamp US about talks at WordCamp US. So it was kind of a bit meta. So the process is, broadly speaking, that after the speaker submissions have closed, we take those submissions and we do a blind internal review a bit, or voting, whatever you want to call it. So we don't associate identity with any of the talks. So it's the talk titles and the descriptions and the categories. And we present that internally for all of those in the WordCamp US organizer team. And the reason why we bring it out to the whole team is because not everybody on the programming department have all the necessary skills to be able to evaluate talks fairly. So for example, I will not go and, evaluate talks on SEO or marketing, because Lord knows I couldn't market myself out of a paper bag. But there are some others that is their bread and butter. Developer talks, community, all the categories that we have. We're thankful that we do have a diverse set, a select piece of the WordPress community that is the WordCamp US organizers, and they will evaluate, and they can offer their feedback and votes and evaluation on talks without knowing what names are attached to those talks. We don't have any speaker information, or no names, no email addresses, no nothing. It's basically talk and description and category, more or less. So once that is complete, then we bring that then the programming team takes that information and we bring that inside the programming team, where we further evaluate category by category how many of these talks that look good to be able to, what is the cream of the crop. But we don't just judge by the votes and the feedback from that stage, because there have been many, many talks that perhaps just needed a tweak in the description or something along those lines for whatever reason. So we don't just look at the top rated ones in the programming team. We look at all of them, but we take the feedback from the WordCamp US team in mind. There could be someone who's brand new at giving WordCamps that has a great subject, but their talk submission could have used a little work, and maybe that's why it got overlooked. Another consideration is diversity, and that can take so many different forms. So diversity in terms of not just male or female or gender or religious, but more along the lines of where you're from, what your experience is, what your viewpoint is. And a lot of talks, especially those talks are conveying that experience. Some talks have, hey, I have this experience with this issue that very few people had, or very few people haven't considered. We look at that as well. So we do start looking at names and biographical information once we get into that level. Because we don't, at the end of the day, we do not end up with, okay, these are the talks that we have, lift up the curtain, and, purely by honest to goodness accident, you have like 40 guys and 2 women or something, or some other imbalance. And we have, fortunately for WordCamp US, the number of talks that do come in, they're from, because we ask and we do that type of search where we say, please submit, please submit, please submit. Our pool of speaker submissions are very diverse. And I think there still could be there's always progress that needs to be made in that department. So very diverse is always a relative term. Is it better than the last couple of years? Only if we do our jobs and get the word out there, because WordCamp organizers don't just sit back and wait for submissions to come in. We invite people. This is another part of the process. We also invite people from outside of the WordPress space to submit their talks. So that's why we have a suggest a speaker form on the website right now. And Joe or Nathan, one of you can probably, or Aaron, one of you can drop that link again as a reminder in the WordCamp US Slack channel. So this form was created so that it's kind of like a reverse speaker call. We want you to nominate someone for us to look at and extend an invitation to, especially if they're outside of the WordPress community. Have you heard someone speak maybe at a meetup or another tech conference? You know, for all I care, they could be purely a Drupal person or whatever, or a competitor, if you want to call it competitor in quotes. It doesn't matter to us because we have a unique opportunity with WordCamp US going virtual this year that we don't have to worry about travel. You know, there's pros and cons and everything. Our pro is we don't have to worry about travel. So
Sure.
We have the opportunity to make this, if there's anything that's going to be more diverse, it's going to be a virtual conference. Because you're not going to have blockers. Now you do have some blockers regarding like technical blockers or bandwidth or internet, but for the most part, travel has always been the biggest block. We've had some people that we've invited to WordCamp US that never could make it because they couldn't get the passport or they couldn't make their travel arrangements for whatever reason. So it remains to be seen how many people from which geographical locations will be selected. This is kind of a first, it's a first thing for us. It is a WordCamp US, but it is a WordCamp 2 that is, it encompasses the entire community as well. So that'll be a factor. And that's generally how the process is. We send emails out. We don't send them all at once. So some people will wonder if they do, if there'll be a short period of time, if they do wonder if they are going to be selected. And once we get past a certain point where we can confirm and get confirmations, then we will be able to accept a letter saying you were accepted or you will not be able to be accepted. Some will get some will get emails saying we would love to have you as a backup speaker because we will definitely need those. And that is just as important to us as any other thing that needs to be submitted into WordCamp US. So one other thing regarding the virtual, a lot of people, some of you may be concerned, maybe if some of you have never done a virtual event before, we will do onboarding. We will give you the AV sign forms. We will do the onboarding with you, walk you through. Once you've been accepted as a speaker, you will get that information in an email. So you don't have to worry about any of that. We are preferring at this time to have talks even pre-recorded. So outside of panels and workshops, perhaps, we are encouraging pre-recorded talks, which I think will take a lot of pressure off of the speakers and also the organizers, because that way you can't go over time or have technical difficulties right during a talk. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. If there's any other questions and we don't address them here, you want to check out the FAQ that's on the website. And again, if Joe, Nathan, or Aaron want to drop a link to that FAQ on the website directly, as a reminder, that would be in the WordCamp US Slack, that would be great as well. So is there any closing thoughts or questions from our invited guests today, who I, again, thank deeply? All your smiles all say thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we do actually want to thank you very much. We were trying to keep this to an hour. Lord knows where my kids are. Babysitter's probably left. But I do want to appreciate all the time that Winstina, Laura, Sabrina, and Ms. Mozek over there. Thank you very much for joining us. I also want to give a special thank you to those people on our team, Joe, Aaron, and Nathan. Wait a minute. Yes. Sorry, Zoom is just shuffling the video squares like a pack of playing cards. I want to thank them all as well. They put a lot of time and effort into the programming team and will be doing so a lot more in the coming weeks, and we want to thank them as well. This will also, as you know, this is recorded, and we'll put this make this available after a little bit of editing. They're probably going to cut out all the bad jokes that I did and all that stuff, chop it in half. It'll be 20 minutes once you chop all that out. It'll be very nice and concise.
So no jokes at all.
No. Well, you get what you pay for, right? That's what somebody said earlier. Yeah. But really, this is something that we wanted to try rather than just doing another Slack, because we wanted people, especially if this is all going to be a virtual event, we wanted a little bit more of a virtual experience in like seeing how people, seeing people's faces when they give their suggestions and their tips about submitting a talk. And if anyone wants to have further review or discussion about their particular proposals, my Slack DMs on WordPress.Slack are open. So is Joe's and Nathan's and Aaron's as well. And you can feel free to ping us also in the WordPress Slack as well. I think that does it. So we thank you again, everybody, and we hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
See you at WordCamp US.
Thanks for doing this.
All right. I'm just going to, let's see. I don't think I can end this without ending. I'm trying to end the YouTube, but I don't think I can do that without ending the call. Oh, no, wait.